There are so many interpretations of Zionism. This podcast doesn't take a political nor religious stand. We take a stand in supporting nonprofits and social enterprises that positively impact others. So let me go back to the interpretation of Zionism. For many Jews worldwide, Zionism simply means supporting the existence of Israel as a Jewish state, believing Jews have a right to national self-determination. Some Zionists support a two-state solution, Israel and a Palestinian state. Others support Israeli sovereignty over more or all of the territory. Many Palestinians view Zionism as a settler colonial movement that displaced the native Arab population, in essence, the ideological root of their dispossession. For them, Zionism is closely tied to occupation and statelessness. It's really important to distinguish the criticism of Israeli government policies, which exist inside and outside of Israel, and anti-Zionism, the opposition to Jewish nationalism or the existence of Israel as a Jewish state. Those are two very different things. Some critics argue Zionism is inherently exclusionary, while others argue opposing Jewish self-determination while supporting it for other groups is discriminatory. At its core, Zionism is a movement for Jewish national self-determination. Whether it's viewed as liberation, colonialism, nationalism, or something else depends largely on historical experience and political perspective. Welcome to Small and Gutsy, the podcast spotlighting nonprofits and social enterprises with budgets under $10 million. My name is Dr. Scherck Wittcoff, and I'm excited to be your host. We bring you the less told stories of organizations that are bold, passionate, and making real impact. Perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, invest in, or donate. Small and Gutsy is more than a podcast. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We've recently been ranked number 8 on FeedSpot's top 30 social impact podcasts and number 3 and number 9 by Million podcasts for the top 30 volunteer podcasts and for our youth empowerment episodes, respectively. We're really proud of these honors, but prouder still of our mission to elevate the visibility of small but mighty change makers. Do you know a nonprofit or social enterprise doing incredible work? If so, send them our way to laura@smallandgutsy.org. I grew up Jewish, but not the kind of Jewish you could see. My mother was a very young Holocaust survivor, an only child, and survival meant blending in. It meant learning quickly. It meant becoming American fast. My father's family had been in this country since the early 1800s. They fought in the Civil War. We were in many ways deeply rooted Americans, and yet we were also Jews, sort of. We went to temple on high holidays. We lit candles sometimes. We observed more on Sundays than Saturdays, going to Sunday school rather than Saturday Shabbat services. Judaism in my home felt quiet, soft, and careful. What I inherited wasn't tradition. Honestly, it was fear. Fear shaped from family history, fear without language, and fear without context at the time. As a child facing antisemitism, which I didn't have the words to defend myself. I didn't have the grounding to feel proud. So I did what many children of survivors learn to do. I made myself smaller. I hid. It wasn't until I married a Catholic that I had to confront what being Jewish actually meant to me. And when my children prepared for their B'nai Mitzvah, I realized something. I couldn't ask them to walk a path I hadn't claimed myself. So in my 40s, I became a bat mitzvah. Not because I suddenly became more religious, but because I needed to stand in my identity fully, consciously, and without apology. This podcast is about a varied journey for many American Jews. It's about assimilation and survival, about inherited trauma and chosen pride, about raising Jewish children when you're still figuring it out yourself, about Israel, anti-Semitism, community, and what it means to belong. If you grew up with mixed messages, if your Jewish identity felt rooted more in fear than in joy, if you've ever felt invisible or ashamed or unsure of how to stand tall, this is the space for you. Let's talk about reclaiming what was always ours. Here is what makes Club Z significant for so many, a place where Jewish teens can learn about their heritage, about Israel, about anti-Semitism, and actually feel equipped to stand tall instead of shrink. This podcast is about shifting the journey of fear to a journey of pride. It's about growing up assimilated, about inherited fear, about reclaiming Jewish identity as an adult, about raising kids who don't feel the shame we once did, and about building the confidence and literacy our younger selves needed. If you've ever felt like you were Jewish but not fully rooted, you inherited history but not pride, you're still figuring out what belonging really means to me, you're in the right place. So let's have a conversation that I wish I had had sooner. Club Z, founded by my guest today, Masha Merkulova, out of a need to create an ongoing, comprehensive, and honest Jewish education program for Jewish teens in the San Francisco Bay Area, has grown into a national organization for Jewish teens, raising modern-day Zionists who are articulate and knowledgeable leaders. Their mission is to create a network of educated and articulate activists with a commitment to Zionism who advocate for themselves, Israel, and the Jewish people. Club Z envisions a network of leaders who embrace their Jewish identity, are proud of their Jewish heritage, and address issues of bigotry and anti-Semitism head-on. They foster responsibility for teens, hone their leadership skills, and arm them with a supportive network. Their guiding principles inform their program and help develop a shared language among teens and educators. They encourage curiosity and exploration, asking teens to think, and I just love this, critically about their beliefs, and model productive debate and disagreement, real civil discourse, which is what we need today more than ever. My guest today didn't grow up knowing she was Jewish. Masha Merkulova was born in the former Soviet Union in a place where Jewish identity wasn't something you celebrated openly. In fact, she didn't even discover she was Jewish until she was a teenager, and we'll hear more about that in a minute. Imagine learning something that fundamental about yourself that late. As Masha began to question who she was, she also began to explore what it meant to be Jewish, and eventually what Zionism meant. And for her, Zionism wasn't a slogan or a political buzzword. It was a movement of justice, a movement of restoration, a response to centuries of exclusion and persecution. Before founding Club Z, Masha spent more than a decade as a Jewish community activist in the San Francisco Bay Area, working to confront anti-Semitism on campus and advocate for Israel. She's been recognized as a Generation Now Fellow through the Jewish Education Project. She completed the Israel Foreign Ministry Diplomatic Seminar for Young Jewish Leaders. She served on the steering committee for the Limud FSU West Coast. As an expert in teen Israel advocacy, she's spoken at JNF's Conversation on Zionism, the Chabad on Campus International convening, the Combat Anti-Semitism Movement Annual Dinner, and the Israeli Symposium at the BBYO International Convention. Whew, quite a lot. Her writing has appeared in the Jerusalem Post, FoxNews.com, Jewish News Syndicate, and E-Jewish Philanthropy, where she tackles some of the hardest and most urgent issues facing Jewish teens today: anti-Semitism, identity, and the delegitimization of Israel. Whew, that's a mouthful. Today, we're talking about identity, how you find it, how you claim it, and how you teach the next generation not to shrink from it. I am so very honored to welcome Masha Merkulova. I wish there had been a Masha in my youth. To the Small and Gutsy family, your passion is clear. Please share what the realization was like discovering you were Jewish and how you came to this place where you are today, helping so many others. So welcome. I'm so happy to have you.
Oh my goodness, Laura, that is quite the introduction. I want to look back like, who is she talking about? Oh my goodness.
I'm talking about you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on with you and on Small and Gutsy podcast. That's exactly what we need. We need to be able to share what we do with people who can make a huge difference for us. And so I so appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thrilled. So I can't imagine, I always knew I was Jewish, even if it wasn't celebrated in the way that would have been most useful to me and where I wasn't confronted with anti-Semitism and did not know how to respond. How did you find out? And you took it upon yourself to learn really who you are inherently.
Yeah, it's a short story. It's not that unusual, but it also is unusual. But the way that I was raised directly reflects on why did I start Club Z and how I approached Zionism to begin with. So my mom is Jewish. My dad is Russian, ethnically Russian. And so in the Soviet system, your nationality was passed paternally. So in every school roster that every teacher had, I was written as a Russian.
Interesting.
Because my mother never thought to bring it up. And it wasn't because she was trying to hide it. She just didn't think to bring it up because she knows who she is.
Right.
What else is there to talk about? It's not like there was a Jewish school or there was a synagogue or there was a Jewish youth group. There was nothing.
And also, I didn't realize that either you were Russian or something else. So did you not have what we would consider as a Jewish home? Like there were no symbols, nothing. So your mom sort of accepted being Russian.
There was
yeah.
Correct. Not just Russian. We were Soviet citizen. That was the beginning and the end of your identity.
Got it.
Right? You're a Soviet citizen. It's all encompassing. The religion is the opium for the masses, according to Comrade Lenin.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was a pediatrician. She worked 80-hour weeks. My dad also worked for the health ministry. My parents were either at work or they were sleeping because they were tired.
Yeah.
And I'm a Gen X. You kind of take care of yourself. So I found myself standing in a passport office when you're 16 years old in Soviet Union. You go get a passport. And the passport lady who casually informs me, "Oh, honey, your mom's name is Riva, the daughter of Leib. You are not a Russian. You are, in fact, a Jew."
You found out at the passport office. That's amazing.
Yes.
Okay. And did you even know what that meant necessarily?
I knew that as a nationality, but again, that was it. I had no idea that Jews were disliked. It was not part of my ecosystem whatsoever.
Yeah.
The next day I show up in school and I make an announcement. "Hey, fun fact, I am a Jew." And all of a sudden I discover all sorts of name calling and blah, 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 blah. But again, here's the thing. Because I did not grow up as a minority, I did not grow up with any kind of baggage, with any kind of shame. I gave the insults right back.
Good for you.
And that was it. That just ended. Like it was it. And everybody moved on. I'll tell you, when I was 15 years old, the Soviet Union was all like crumbling. My two girlfriends who were not Jewish, so the three of us, we went church shopping.
Because you knew you had an option then to practice something you had never had a chance to practice. Got it. Yeah, interesting.
But the Chabadniks from New York haven't arrived yet.
Right.
I had no idea what that was.
Right.
And so we went church shopping, and they settled on Catholic because you sit in a Catholic church as opposed to Orthodox Russian church where you stand the entire time for the service.
Mm-hmm.
I never went back, but that's how divorce, sort of like my understanding of myself was. It was never on the radar.
Did you lose friendships, though, when you made that announcement and people were cruel, it sounds like? Or did your friends sort of not care and move forward? Because there's so much anti-Semitism, and I experienced it. I had gone to an all-girls school that there were only 3 Jews in my class, so it was painful.
Looking back now, I think I did because suddenly the group of girls that I was with weren't as friendly. But honestly, I wasn't. Teenagers are so, in any location, under any circumstances, you're so self-absorbed. And I still had my 2 friends, and I had another friend, and that's
all you need. Right.
That's all you need. That's exactly it. And so the girls who didn't, I just moved on. I said, but again, it's also like I never cared much because I think when you grow up with a majority of identity, you're not as insecure. So I was never insecure
Good for you.
in who I was.
Mm-hmm. And were you an only child, or did you have siblings?
I have an older half sister who, again, we grew up just Soviet identity. That was it. And I would be shocked to find out that, all these years later, I am like the Jew of the family. That is very funny to me.
Yeah, it is. And is your half sister from your mom? So she's also Jewish. And did she learn that at the same time you did, or when she was 16?
Honestly, I have no idea. And I didn't really come into my Jewish identity until I moved to America and my son started going to a Jewish day school. And that's where I started learning about Judaism and being Jewish and Israel and Zionism.
So talk a little bit about that, because you obviously saw a huge need here that you wanted to address in kids, sort of like how I grew up, and then grew up even more Jewish, but wanted to ground themselves, particularly today, when identity is so threatened in lots of different ways and places.
When you did your very long introduction, I have not heard you do this kind of explanatory introduction about a concept. And it struck me that I don't know of any other people for whom others define us or defined our terms, and we think that it's acceptable.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Right?
Yes.
So when I discovered Israel and when I learned the story of Israel, and it was still a story far away. I was living in California. Israel is somewhere over there, and there's constantly like it's sand, it's camels,
Right.
it's war.
And it's Israelis. They're not Russians. They're not European. I mean, in what we understood. Yeah. I felt similarly. Yeah.
However, in 2005, in July and then August, Israel was having the disengagement debate and movement. And at that time, the only social media network that was around was actually YouTube. And somehow the algorithm started feeding me videos of protests, of the orange ribbons, and this and that. And then on August 15th, which by the way was Tisha B'Av, I am watching Jews in blue hats, baseball hats, drag out Jews with orange hats or just normal clothes. Both parties are crying, but Jews are doing what I am watching is a pogrom on other Jews.
And Jews. Yeah. People don't realize that.
Right. So what my Soviet identity instilled in me very well is to sniff out what is happening and what am I going to do about it. Soviet education and upbringing was full of propaganda and falsehoods. However, it was all about being a justice warrior. That is the Soviet propaganda. So like when today's, youngsters, I'm a justice warrior. Please sit down.
Yeah.
Smoke a cigarette, relax. So what I saw was horrible injustice being done, supposedly in the name of my people. And that has led me on a huge Masha is getting education. I went to every single Jewish and Israel event I could find. I hid the books. I sat on age.com for weeks and months and years. And once you learn the story of Israel and how miraculous it is, then you can't look back. At that time, I was working in obstetrics, and my coworkers would literally they will see me, they'll start walking around because I would want to talk to everybody about it because I just discovered something amazing. I wanted to share it with everybody.
Of course.
So for me, your introduction of me was amazing because you got exactly, for me, Zionism became a matter of justice, right? So something happened to us 2,000 years ago. We have never given up. We have never agreed to anything. That is what makes us different from everybody else. We have never signed on a dotted line. We have never given up. And now we have restored the justice. The balance have been restored. We have our country. And I have to tell you, everybody's talking about the interview, the interrogation, the trap that Tucker Carlson set for Ambassador Huckabee. But there is a point to what he was saying. He's like, well, what do you mean that Israel has a right to exist? Does everybody have a right to exist? What gives Israel the right to exist? And not only does Israel has a right to exist, the country of Israel is the only country unique in the world that has our deed in a religious historical text.
Yeah.
Ones, right? And so, yes, I don't want to debate.
So that is the definition from your perspective. I understand that now. Yeah.
Here's the thing, what we teach our students, right? You could be religious and the Torah could be the beginning and end for all. However, unless you're going to live in a religious community in Teaneck, you're going to have other arguments that you can deploy. However, please do not start with that. Make a friendship first.
I love that.
Get to know the people. Because I don't think it's our job to try to explain and defend our people and ourselves to people who wish us ill. If somebody is curious, I'm more than happy to sit and spend time with you and tell you everything that I know.
Yeah.
But if premise is already evil, because that is what evil is, then I'm not.
Well, it's a waste of time, right? It's a pure waste of time.
Exactly.
And so, I love that approach with your students because it's teaching them the beauty of civil discourse in that you build a relationship, or even if you don't know the person well, it's the belief that you can have a disagreement in a respectful way. And so if you don't get to know the other person, you're making assumptions. And if your assumption becomes true that they just want to create harm or ill on you, you get the choice to walk away because you're wasting your time because you're not going to convince them anyway. So I love that premise a lot. I think it's teaching a great skill.
Time is precious. Your energy is precious. You could do so many better things with your time and your soul.
Yeah,
At the same time, we do need to know the arguments.
of course.
But the arguments could only come after you know what does it mean to be a Jew. You understand where the Jews come from, and that Judaism, even though it is the religious part of your identity, but that being Jewish is not about religious practice.
It's a
Otherwise,
culture.
80%,
It's in your blood. Yeah, it's your
right,
DNA.
80% of the
Yeah.
80% of American Jews would not qualify.
Right. That's true. That is what differentiates Jews because it is inherently part of your lineage, not just a practiced religion.
What is wrong with saying, yes, we are unique? We have a system not just of religious practice, but we also have a system. We have our own calendar.
That's right.
You could fulfill all of the commandments only in a particular land, right? So we are not just a religion. We're not just a race. It's a civilization. And it's a civilization that has gifted the world a day off.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
And all the other goodies that we have gifted the world since 1948.
Right. Or much before 1948, truthfully, right? And have been reindoctrinated into other cultures, other religions, because obviously Christianity came out of Judaism. So it's interesting.
Right.
It's really interesting.
And by the way, and Quran has plenty of references to Bnei Israel, and that the land of Israel belongs to the children of Israel.
Yeah.
Quran actually doesn't deny that connection. The propagandists, the Hasbara version of Islam denies it.
Yeah.
But
painful.
Serious Islamic scholars will admit to it.
So what age group do you usually take on in terms of your students? So I want to hear about your programs and more about some of the kind of aha moments you've had with some of your students.
So our programs on the ground are in San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles, in the Valley. Would love to do it in the city as well. Ding, ding, ding. We are in Boston and in a tri-state New York area.
Right.
Especially Livingston, New Jersey, Brooklyn, and Westchester.
Right.
It could start as early as mature 8th graders. So after bar bat mitzvah, please. So they're not worried about missing a session or here or there.
Right.
And what we do is we run what we're calling basic training. And that is once a month. And this is the sort of like the foundational pieces of what you need to know. We start with Jewish peoplehood, with Jewish indigeneity, with Jewish rights and Jewish power. It's another thing, like, why are we uncomfortable with power?
Yeah.
Isn't it good to have agency over our destiny?
Right. You're not trying to have power over somebody else. That's where the interpretation gets a false or a bad narrative. Yeah, I hear you.
But that, again, this is where we need to flip the narrative, because trust me, if Jews were able to control weather,
right,
I think you would be digging yourself out of snow right now.
Right. But, or power over other people. When you're an Israeli citizen, you have every right that an Israeli has, regardless of whether you're a Jew, a Christian, or a Muslim. That, I think, gets so misunderstood by many folks. But I love your interpretation of power because it's agency. It's not power over somebody else. And that is a very important distinction in terms of the learning and the opportunity for these high schoolers, essentially.
Exactly. So for kids then who are really interested in more than the basic training and really want to hone their skills. We're calling it Sayeret. It was dubbed by Colonel Richard Kemp, a retired colonel from the British Army.
I know him, actually. I sat next to him
Yeah.
at an event. He's a wonderful man. Yeah, that's great.
And this is a 2-year program. It is both academic and social. Kids meet about every other week for 3 hours. And so they're going to build on the knowledge that they've gained in basic training. And then, because it's 2 years, they're also going to gain debate skills, presentation skills, public speaking abilities, persuasive writing, all of the things that, to be perfectly honest, schools used to do.
I know. It's sad, right? I know. Some do, but not many.
Yeah. It's both Jewish history, Israel history, and it's also a lot of professional development.
Yeah, I love that.
And the goal is for kids who come, they come out on the other end being much more confident in who they are. So it translates not just to anti-Semitism
Right.
and how to deal with it. It translates into every aspect of a young person's life because they know how to speak confidently, articulately, not lose their cool.
I love that.
When conflicts arise. And it's so important that advocacy needs to be part of it. And I don't mean that advocacy is hasbara.
Right.
No, forget hasbara. Hasbara is propaganda. That's what it is. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about advocacy, meaning how do you advocate for yourself as a person? That's what advocacy is. So, for example, when a teacher posts a AP exam, calculate how Israeli bombing have affected global warming in Gaza, you can articulate and point out how ridiculous this question is, but you can't say, dear teacher, this is a ridiculous question. You actually need to go to the length of explaining why it's intellectually dishonest, inaccurate, and it's in itself propaganda.
Right. That's a really good point.
How many adults could do that?
Right.
Right? That is the problem.
I think you're giving these kids also a way to navigate life, regardless of what their ultimate profession is, because so many of us don't have that capability and then lose confidence when we're confronted with propaganda that we know is false or wrong, but we don't have the language to stand up and say, here's why I'm uncomfortable with this, or I don't agree with this, or here's the factual information that I found, and here's the text or whatever. So I love that you're doing that. You're really empowering them.
Yes. And the last part is the most important, right? Because what one might feel or not feel is not as relevant as what is and what isn't.
Yeah, good point.
And so, that's the other thing. It's interesting. As a society, I think we're walking away, thankfully, slowly from, political correctness. And, I'm afraid to offend somebody. Sometimes truth is offensive, but that is not a fault of the truth teller.
Right.
And then you just need to find the best way and the best language to say it. But sometimes you just need to call things out. So if somebody says something that's factually incorrect, I think it's perfectly fine to say, what you're saying is factually incorrect. Here is why, and here is what actually this means.
I like that you're taking the emotions out of it to an extent, because I think a lot of propaganda does the opposite. It hones in on our emotions, wants to trigger whoever it's aimed at, right? And either start something or exacerbate it or create false narratives that then people internalize in a negative way, and then they feel they can't speak up. So I love that you're equipping these kids with a way to rationally respond to things that can affect them emotionally, but that you're pointing out that the emotional response is not the best effort forward.
It never looks good when anybody responds with just emotion.
Yeah.
Right? But we do need to build emotional connection to each other.
Of course.
And one of the things that I expect is when a Club Z student scrolls through their feed, right? Like they see something horrible happening somewhere, there's earthquake somewhere. And they go, oh, this is too bad, because they're people, they're going to pause, right? And then they're going to move on. When they see that something is happening that has to do with Jews, I want them to stop. I want them to call. I want them to find out what's happening. I want them to get involved because there are so few of us. There's 15 million Jews in the world at most.
Right.
We have not made up the numbers pre-Holocaust. That's what people don't understand. And so that's why I fight for every Jewish child that I could possibly bring into the fold of Jewish peoplehood, because that's the most important thing.
Well, it's the future. It's really the future. So I want to go back because I didn't really let you finish. So your personal story, then you started to really, you were working in obstetrics. You started to share like, oh, I found this out, or this is really, it must have been like an awakening for you in a way, right? And then there wasn't a Club Z before you came along. So how did you come up with the idea? And back in those early days, how did that formulate, and how did you, now you have them in, 4 different cities or 5 different cities, which is great.
So eventually I joined the Jewish community in San Francisco Bay Area. And as part of it, I got involved with a small organization. And the whole point of that organization was to fund pro-Israel events at Stanford, UC Berkeley, UC Santa Cruz, and there's a Silicon Valley Hillel that also organizes pro-Israel events. And we would give quick grants to students with very easy paperwork, because when students run events, they always forget about something.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot that I need a couple of $100 for pizza, or I forgot to order t-shirts and now I need $2,000 because it's,
Right.
So our shtick was, we'll give you funds very quickly and easily, but we want to know what's happening on the ground. And so as part of this, I was a volunteer with this organization. I started going to UC Berkeley. That was like my campus that I went to. And every time I went there, I would be speaking to these bright Jewish UC Berkeley students who have gotten Jewish education. They went to Jewish high school or Jewish day school. They've been to Israel. They've been part of the youth group. They've been to Jewish summer camp. They did not know basic facts.
Interesting.
They couldn't understand the difference between the Independence War and Six-Day War. They did not know fully what Zionism was. They couldn't they did not know basic history. So at the same time, this organization that most people now know, if not now, it wasn't coming up yet, but I kept seeing Jewish students being turned to become anti-Jewish activists.
Anti-Israel.
Anti-Israel, correct. And their whole thing was, well, I didn't know that Palestinians were suffering. Well, I didn't know that there were all these people that I didn't know. And I said, okay, the cheapest thing that you could do to treat an illness is to prevent it. So let's inoculate them. Why aren't we telling them what the other side is saying? Why aren't we telling them, listen, the other side is going to tell you about Nakba. Okay, let's talk about Nakba. What is Nakba? What does the word mean? When did it happen? Who was involved? What was actually happening on the ground? So part of our curriculum is Palestinian narrative. What are these people saying to themselves? Because we need to understand, if we're going to have a conversation with somebody, we need to understand, what do they know about themselves?
Right.
Because we know they don't know anything about us.
Right.
We already know that.
Right.
But I want to know about, what do they tell themselves? And once we know what they tell themselves, then we need to unpack it. And if the Jews, if the state of Israel, if whatever, the Zionists, if we did something that is questionable, that is morally abhorrent, I want to know about it.
Yeah.
It's part of our history. But that's the thing, right? There's a story of Kfar Qasim. It's when IDF killed Arabs who were coming from the fields because the Arabs didn't know about the curfew. And IDF killed a whole bunch of people. They made a mistake. But as the result of that, we have the moral code of the IDF. That was the lesson that they did, where any soldier can question an order and not follow that order if they think it's a wrong order. That's what makes the difference between us and probably every other army.
Very true.
I started going, and it started being in my head that we're not preparing our children. We're not preparing our children. And I was a parent who was paying, at that point, hundreds of thousands of dollars for Jewish day school. And I knew that my Jewish day school where my son went, they weren't preparing them. And I went around looking, Federation, JCRC, nobody was having those conversations. And this is like the status quo was just there. Hebrew schools, who works in Hebrew school? Whoever is willing to take the job. Anybody with a pulse who is willing to take the job and is willing to work for pennies will get the job as a Hebrew teacher in a Hebrew school. So there's no standards. There is literally nothing. And so I just thought that that's wrong. And, long story short, I came into possession of right here, see that binder right there? It's still there. It's original from 2012.
Wow.
I came into possession of a curriculum that's called Israel and Jewish Identity. It literally connects Jewish identity, Jewish peoplehood, and Zionism. And that has been our 3 pillars from the beginning.
And your first group, were they high schoolers? How did you pull people together?
It was word of mouth. So my son brought friends, his friend, those friends, etc., etc. I started with 3 boys. It became 10 boys.
That's great.
Boys. Then I'm like, we need some girls. And our local JCC, they built a beautiful facility and they had a beautiful, what's called the teen center, but at that time they didn't have any programming, and so they said, you're welcome to use it.
Perfect.
And so what started as once a month, the kids are like, we need more of this, let's do it every other weekend, and they're like, we need more of this. I'm like, guys, I have a full-time job,
right. Right. So you were doing the teaching yourself, and then eventually did other people volunteer and step up? And of course, then you went into other cities and they replicated your program. But what a journey you've had. How many students do you have per year? And it's probably the same group that comes back until they graduate, I would assume.
It really varies. So this year we are at about 200 students. Last year we were over 400
Wow.
students.
And this is across the country or only in this area? Okay,
yes.
Across the country. And then with this new program that Colonel Kemp helped to create, which I love, that's really for when you're in college, right? Or
No,
it's high
it's high
school.
school.
The 2 okay,
It's
great.
high school.
Wonderful.
Yeah, this is that. Yeah.
So that's an
Yeah, so we-
exceptional.
Yeah, so we started this program last year where we're much more, we formalized, if you will. We really sort of like put a lot more scaffolding, a lot more processes, because it's really difficult to have an 8th grader and 11th grader in the same room.
Yeah, of
Right.
course.
So even basic training will separate kids by age.
Perfect.
So we'll have 8th and 9th graders together, and then we'll have 10th or 12th graders together.
Perfect. Yeah,
The idea is basic training is 0 requirements. You don't have to know anything.
great.
Just
show up.
yeah, the only requirement is show up once a month, learn something.
And it's nice because you have girls and boys together, so they bond as a group and connect. And I imagine they're from various schools all over the area that they can get to. And so there's usually a central location in each of these areas which is absolutely terrific. So let me start with, unfortunately, I love technology. I love certain parts of social media. I mean, I'm on Instagram to sort of promote the fabulous organizations like yours that I get to connect with. And at the same time, it is turned into either an ad or absolutely fake information, and even dubbing people's voices that sound like them for the purpose of convincing somebody of something, whether it's a product and to buy or whether it's a point of view. How do you teach students, and I'm asking actually for myself too, how do you teach us to really discern a source like that? Because a lot of the pushback I'm sure these students get is, here, look at this video, or this is what's happening. So how do you help them differentiate between what's real and what's essentially propaganda?
In all honesty, this question existed before AI.
Of course, absolutely. Oh my God, look at Hitler. Like, it's an easy,
Right,
or in your
right.
experience growing up. Yeah.
Yeah, how do you discern? So we do a couple of things, but this is ongoing. Like, our themes like this are ongoing.
Good.
And every session, right, it'll open with what's going on, what are you seeing, what are you hearing.
Great.
And so this is where older kids will help the younger ones, but also the educators will help everybody to, who are your reliable sources? How do you check for it? We run social media training
Great.
workshops.
I love it.
Not only to teach them how to discern, but also to teach them how to stay safe online.
Right, because
How
that is an
to-
issue. For sure.
It's a very, very big. It's a very big issue. Parents are trusting their children to us. That is a responsibility that cannot be taken lightly. But it's ongoing. We work with Camera, Committee of Accuracy Middle East Reporting.
Do they have a channel? Do they have a social media?
They have their own Instagram, and there's also Camera on Campus.
Good.
And they're great. They've done so much research. They're really great source and partners of ours.
Great.
To, is this real? Is this not real? And then I have my own sources in Israel and in the media where I could just quickly guys,
Text
what is
what's
happening?
That's great.
Right.
It's so hard.
So a lot,
for the general
Yeah,
public to figure that out.
right. So a lot of it is just kind of background work. But a lot of times kids would post something in the WhatsApp, guys, I'm seeing this. Is this real?
Oh, this is great. So you have private groups for them that they can check. It's such a good support.
Correct.
It's really great.
Correct.
I love that. I teach a graduate class at USC in policy, and I was teaching at October 7th, and there was then the aftermath, and I had both Jewish students and I had Arab students and then Latino students in a whole. It's all a mix. And I had to be very careful about I don't take a position politically. I have to be very careful because I'm not there to do that. That's not my mission. My mission is to help them learn to think. And so I love hearing what you said, because my push for them is go look at the source, go look at that source's source, dig till you get to the actual facts that are coming. Yeah, it's just hard.
Look who's funding the
Right.
source.
Perfect. I love that. Absolutely. And you have to do that in scientific research all the time in terms of, did a drug company, fund this research on this particular drug? It doesn't mean it's bad. It means you have to take that into account. And sometimes it is bad. Sometimes it's not. So I love what you're saying. It's so important. And it's so important for young people to not only build community, build connection. You're teaching them to ask questions, and you're giving them a responsible way to manage their own agency in that context. And I just think it's quite beautiful. So I'd love to hear, throughout your many years, it's been 14 years or something like that, right? I would love to hear a few aha moments like that surprised you, maybe with a student, aha moments that sort of warmed your heart. Anything that you feel you can share. You don't have to share names, but I think those are so remarkable because you're doing this work out of the goodness of your heart, and you're compelled to do it because because of your own story, but also your deep belief in helping students navigate their own agency within the context of their Jewish identity. And it's lovely.
Thank you. I think one of the biggest surprises that we have encountered is how little does it take for us to see the student all of a sudden rise up. And I don't mean raise up and, raise hell. No. I'm saying to raise their confidence. It takes very little, but it does have to be intentional. And the thing that works with Club Z is that it's not only, come, learn, go do. It's also, we have your back. So what gives them this confidence is they know that if they call us, we will be there to catch them.
That's great.
And that is, I think, what is missing for a lot of people, because if I know that I'm going to stick my neck out, I don't want to be there hanging by myself.
For sure, 100%. And particularly at the vulnerable age of the teen years, because they're already feeling vulnerable. And so I love that so do you have an example of where a student may have called and you had to sort of jump in and support them?
Those examples are countless. And usually, I'll tell you what usually happens. Usually the student will call us before they call their parents. So if something happens at school, they're more comfortable calling us. And then we call the parent and we tell them, hey, this is what's happening. Don't run to the school yet. Let's make a plan. And then we'll make a plan together with the parents, and we'll be coaching the parent behind the scenes. Or if it goes to escalation, then we'll connect them to the appropriate agency, whether it's a law firm, whether it's a think tank, whatever it is. So that is sort of like the institutional support. And then there is also, when our alumni is on college campus and they need something, they know that they'll call me or they'll call their regional educator, programming person,
So great.
and we'll have it there. Because what most people don't realize still is that when something negative, when something anti-Israel happens on a college campus, Jewish students don't know about it until the last minute.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's done by design by the other side. It's not like, why can they prepare ahead of time? Why don't they know? We don't know. They don't know because it's been hidden from them until the very last minute when nothing could be changed or
Right.
nothing could be done.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you have 12 hours to prepare 100 speeches to give it a BDS hearing, So one of the things that we do is we train our kids, and there are those that are inclined, for example, to run for student senate. So you could be there ahead of time.
Oh, right. To help
You'll
support.
know ahead
Mm-hmm.
of time, and you could actually prevent something. So it's also, we need to be smarter and we need to be a lot more strategic. And still, I really don't like the fact that we're putting that burden on our
On
children.
the student. Yeah, I agree. It's really
I
too
wanna
bad.
know, I
Mm-hmm.
want to know where are the adults in the room.
Right.
And that goes back to the beginning where we are allowing somebody else define our terms and define what is ours and what is not ours. And that is where the leadership of the big establishments, legacy organizations, big philanthropists, that's where their efficacy could come in, where they are wielding their power
Right.
for the agency of their grandchildren at this point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I also wonder, and you've probably toyed with this, and there's so many adult Jewish learning opportunities. But do you ever offer your curriculum for adults? I know that's a stretch because it's not necessarily your mission, but I feel like adults or caregivers of your students could benefit from their own sort of support group. Not that the student wouldn't come to you first necessarily, and I totally understand that. I remember being in kindergarten and I had something happen to me. Somebody said some things, and I never went and told my parents because I was afraid to. I thought I just wouldn't have support. I thought what I would get, which I think is true, frankly, is they don't know, just ignore it, blah, blah. The usual. Again, this is a long time ago when I was little, but it did leave a mark. I still remember it to this day. And, I had a student, a fellow student sitting at my little snack table asking me, looking at my head saying, I'm looking for horns, like the old, and it's true. I mean, people don't really believe that stuff happens. It happened to me. And I never said anything because I just thought I wouldn't. I learned a lesson early on: hide, fit in, even pretend you're not Jewish so that you can just get by. And it's a terrible feeling because a piece of yourself dies and you have to rebirth it. So I wonder if there's something for parents.
I would love it if we could get the resources that we need to do it.
Yeah.
The other aha moment, the other thing that people need to understand, it really is not that complicated. When people start saying, this is so complex, and this is so nuanced. Okay, you know what? History is not that complicated. It's what we do with it.
Yeah, how we interpret it. Mm-hmm.
How do we interpret it? Like, what do we do now? Let's start with the basics. Let's just learn what actually happened. And then we could add the complexity. But
Right.
most people don't even know the
Basic facts. Mm-hmm.
basic facts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're doing an incredible service. And I'm surprised that no parent has come forward yet to say, I need this too. But maybe they hear a little bit of what their student is learning, or maybe they feel they already know. Who knows?
One of the things that we do is after each session, parents get an email, detailed email with everything that was discussed, with every video that has been shown linked up, and a series of 3 to 5 questions. Here are things you
Love
could
it.
speak about
Okay.
at your dinner table on
Great.
Shabbat.
I love
right?
it. That's great. Mm-hmm.
But parents have asked. It's all a matter of resources.
Mm-hmm.
If we're making priorities, then we have to prioritize.
The kids, for sure. But I love that you added that piece because I wasn't aware of it, because that is a programmatic piece. So then you've given parents tools to be able to talk about it at home. And I think the biggest message, again, I'm speaking only from my own perspective, but the biggest message is, can I go home, whether they call you first or not, can I go home and have a conversation with my parents? Because I think teenagers often are afraid of what the response might be. Either the parent will get enraged and say, I'm going to go to that school and I'm going to teach them or tell them whatever, which is not the healthiest response, which is what you're teaching them. And so if the parent reads what they're learning in your program, they will respond accordingly, or they'll call you or one of the educators and say, hey, my son or daughter came to me with this. I want to be able to respond. I told them I would give you a call to talk about it. Or they even come and be on speakerphone and you talk about it all together. So there's so many options that parents can do. When my kids were younger, I have a one child who's on the autism spectrum, and I refused to treat him differently than any other kid. And he's now a librarian, I'm happy to say. So he's a smart little cookie. But we used to sit at the dinner table, and I started this thing saying, what was something that happened today that was good? And what was something you wish were different? So that everyone had an opportunity to sort of share, well, I wish, it could have been anything. I wish it hadn't rained, whatever. Or something more, I wish Johnny hadn't taken my cookies out of my lunch box, whatever it was. But at least there was an opening. And so I think what you've created is not only these young people to engage in their own identity in a strong, prideful way, you've also engaged the family if they choose to. And then I can imagine that some of the students come into their homes and say, hey, we talked about this, and I think I just love that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the things that parents report. Like, I'm having much more interesting conversation with my teenager.
Yeah.
Then, did you do homework? Did you, clean up your...
Yeah.
So
it's beautiful.
But again, it also stems from, I want to be as transparent as possible with the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Because I need them to trust me. When I'm going to then ask them to take a risk with me, I need to build that trust. And so the other thing that we do programmatically, which has become a lot more difficult in the last few years, is we've traditionally brought our older kids to anti-Israel events.
That's hard. That must be hard, emotionally hard a little. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, preferably not. Like, I don't like taking them to like anti-Israel rally, because it's like, it's too.
It's volatile. Yeah. It's not. Yeah.
Especially now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Presbyterian Church is hosting Norman Finkelstein, or they're hosting Breaking the Silence, or they're hosting, some other uber left anti-Israel group. Stanford University, that was years ago, they hosted son of Bar Gutsy, who was doing a hunger strike.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. Mm-hmm.
To bring teenagers into that environment where there was about 300 people sitting there, and they're all listening to this nonsense, but they're all agreeing, and you're seeing like, wow, these look like normal people, but they're all just under the blanket of complete insanity. That is where the training comes in, where you just need to sit and you just need to listen, and you need to then, if you have the inner stamina, you can
raise your hand and ask a question, because you also have your group there. And I think that's also it's a great message to say you have a voice, even in the context of disagreement, because you're doing it in the most professional way. And so I love that you're teaching that. I think it's a gift for those students in every context. It absolutely really is. So at the end of our podcast, I have a round of quick and gutsy questions that are just fun for hopefully for you to answer. If you have a response, you can pass if you want to. But are you ready for your quick and gutsies?
All right, let's do
it. But I love the way that you're teaching this program. I think it's remarkable. My hope is that it spreads. So what is at the top of your wish list for Club Z? However, the answer can't be money or funding, because every nonprofit and social enterprise, that's what they say. So I thought I would take that out of the equation. So what's at the top of your wish list for Club Z?
At the top of my wish list are people who are able to teach what we teach. One of my biggest difficulties is finding educators who are able, articulate, educated enough, and also want to give of themselves to these teens. Because it's not just come and lecture, it's come and invest your soul into these children.
Well, you're building a community. So when you do educate, you are building the community in which you're in, and you want to be that person as a support. to the students. You have to be. I think that's a great requirement that you have. So what makes Club Z gutsy? Because you are on Small and Gutsy. You are gutsy.
We're going against the grain of everything. That is what makes it gutsy, is that our existence is a reminder that what we have right now doesn't work. And so, unfortunately, by design, we're going against the grain of every single thing that should be embracing us.
Yeah, it does make you gutsy. And you also, I think what makes you gutsy, frankly, is the belief in your youth to be able to take on these challenging, sometimes combative issues and stand tall and with professionalism and have a response that your entire organization can be proud of. So I think that's pretty gutsy. What is something that outsiders and maybe even a few insiders don't know about Club Z?
We have a lot of fun together.
That's great.
We have a lot of fun together as people who are working at Club Z, and we have a lot of fun together as community, as teens come together. There is laughter, there's constant jokes, perhaps maybe because the topics are so heavy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. What we do is I wake up in the morning and I'm like, this is great. I get to do this again.
I love that. I love both that attitude, but also the belief that you can have fun when you're learning something that is maybe new and challenging and something that you didn't know you'd have to be equipped to do. You think civil discourse should just be part of a civil society, and it's not. So I love that. If you could get one celebrity or influencer to endorse or talk about Club Z, who might that be?
Adam Sandler after he comes on a Club Z trip to Israel.
First of all, I love Adam Sandler. I think that is a great choice.
He has never been to Israel.
He's never been to Israel because he's such a huge supporter of Israel and being Jewish. That's really interesting. I think you need to invite him.
Let me take
him and his kids and his wife and the whole family. Right.
With our teens on our special Club Z trip to Israel.
I love
and
that.
Then, you know.
So is that something that you would invite other celebrities who could endorse your program to go on a Club Z trip? Is that something that you sometimes offer?
Yes.
Great. I love that.
Yes.
Because it's beautiful. Yeah, it's great. I'm a big supporter of Jewish National Fund. As an adult, I wish I had been a young teen, part of your program or part of going to Birthright or any of that, but I didn't have that opportunity. My kids did, but I didn't. So, okay, so we're going to circle back to a song or a lyric.
Unstoppable.
No, I love that. Perfect. That's brilliant. Perfect. I think that is a metaphor for the Jewish people. Frankly, if I had to say one, that's it. You just nailed it. That was great. So, Masha, how do people reach you or learn about Club Z?
We have a website, clubzforzionism.org. Our Instagram handle is Zionism for Teens, which is growing by leaps and bounds. And people can just look me up. I'm very easily findable, masha@clubz.org. Literally, my phone number is on my Facebook.
I love that. Thank you. Masha, this has been such a treat. I feel like I have learned so much myself, not only about Club Z, but your personal story, which is beautiful, and your dedication to really helping our teens manage in the world, both as Jews, that's a strong part of their identity, but as citizens in some way, because you're teaching them how to have appropriate public discourse. And it's just something that is part of character building, frankly. And that's what you're doing, which I love. And I love the parent piece that you send an email, which I didn't know about before. I think is wonderful as a parent of 4 now adults. I believe in those deeper conversations and always being available. And when you can't be, or the kid doesn't want to come to you, you're an incredible avenue for them.
Exactly.
You know, as I opened, my mom, it was a very young Holocaust survivor, but I grew up with so much fear. And now to have that in the face of our environment more and more is just something, I grew up with in the back of my mind, but I never thought it would be as global as it is now. And it's heartbreaking, I have to say. So I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, really, for this podcast, for the opportunity, and for giving us this chance to tell more people about the work that is being done. And honestly, even if, they live not in that area or they don't want to come, the other channels, we have a massive Clubsy YouTube channel where we put a lot of content.
Right.
If people just spend time there, they could get a huge education.
Oh, I love that.
What I want for the American Jews to understand is that no matter how assimilated, how hidden you are, eventually somebody will know and they will ask you questions. So you might as well find out who you people are, where they come from, so you could have a conversation with a neighbor. We're one people. Whatever happens, it's going to be one destiny between Jews of Israel and Jews of America.
For sure.
It's the two centers in the world right now.
Mhm.
So let's get to know each other. Let's know our mutual history.
Mhm.
So that our children could be excited about being Jewish.
Yeah. And I just want to reiterate something so important that you said before is that it's not about the religious practice that you have. It's really about the ethnicity and the culture and the identity piece, which is, at the forefront. And I love that because you're really accepting of any Jew of any background. And I think it is so essential because we've had sometimes division within our larger Jewish community, and it's not useful and it isn't accurate, because we've, for better or worse.
It's artificial lines of separation. Why?
Right. It makes no sense. Well, it's what you said in the beginning in my definition is that we've allowed other people to define us and then we've internalized some of that definition. And so I so appreciate that you said that. And it really gives me pause to think about not only exploring more of your website, I've done a little bit, but exploring the YouTube channels, learning a bit for myself, and taking on, you mentioned a news outlet that you really like. And I'd love for you to repeat that name for other listeners, maybe to check that out.
Yeah, of course. It's camera.org. And what they do is they're holding press accountable for their dishonest reporting.
Love it.
It's a great resource. They've done a lot of research. They've put out a lot of research reports. So, yeah, it's a great org.
No, I really appreciate it. We have to put out information that we know has integrity,
Reliable.
right? And is accurate.
Exactly.
And so I love that you're able to share that. So I so appreciate all of that, honestly. Please go to smallandgutsy.org to check out all of our episodes. And if you're so inclined, please purchase some Small and Gutsy merchandise, consider sponsoring an episode, or making a donation. Both are tax deductible and help keep us going and spotlighting these great organizations. The opinions and viewpoints expressed by our guests are independent and don't reflect the position or views of Small and Gutsy. Of course, we can't take responsibility outside of our own vetting of the organizations we interview, so before you sign on to support or work for them, we encourage you to do your own due diligence and research them as well. I want to thank my partners in this endeavor, the Intrinsic Group, the donors, the sponsors, and my incredible board of directors, Brianna Carmichael, John Gatto, Lucy Mello, Ari McCoy, Melissa Greitz, and Serena Rajabian, who believed in me in this project enough so to sign on to support this effort, and all the folks, friends, and family who have guided and inspired me. And thank you for listening. Together, we are spreading social impact, and you can help us. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to email me the name of any organization you feel would benefit from being interviewed. From small and gutsy to big with impact. I'm Dr. Laura Scherck Wittcoff, and thanks for listening.